Hey class, welcome to our second week of bioethics, where this week we're going to be sort of wrapping up our discussion of ancient thought as it relates to ethics with a little bit of Aristotle's account of action and virtue, and then we will be turning our attention to this book, which is alas showing up backwards on yours, where we'll sort of get into the nitty-gritty of modern bioethics. But I want to say a few things about Aristotle's theory of the different sorts of actions, because I think it's a lot of important points sometimes get lost in the discussion. So Aristotle's concern is to define what is a virtuous action, right? Which isn't virtue literally in the Greek means excellent. So what is a sort of a morally excellent action? And along the way to doing that, he wants to make the point that not every action is even capable of being virtuous, right? Because he's going to maintain that to call something virtuous or excellent is to praise it. Likewise, to call something vicious or base is to condemn or criticize it, and not all actions are actually actions that it would be correct to blame or to praise. Aristotle thinks, and I think rightly, that we should really only be praised and blamed for voluntary actions. And other forms of actions or other kinds of actions are not admitting of praise or blame. And Aristotle distinguishes between two other kinds of, actually maybe three other kinds of actions that are not admitting of praise or blame. The first and most obvious is the involuntary action, right? An involuntary action is something that we have really no direct control over, right? So those of you, I know a lot of y'all are in like nursing and kinesiology and things like that. So if you think about the distinction between voluntary and involuntary muscles, right? You can control your voluntary muscles, but you can't really control your involuntary muscles. They're going to do what they do regardless of whether or not you want them to. Similarly, Aristotle thinks that there are certain actions that we do that are involuntary and we can't control, and therefore they are not ones that we can be praised or blamed for. In the case of, one example of what Aristotle might have in mind is something like, suppose you and I are walking up a crowded stairwell, right? There's lots of people around. This would be before COVID-19 and all of the social distancing. Imagine we're in a crowded stairwell on campus before all the social distancing, and me being a jerk, when I get to the top of the stairs, I turn around and I push you. And so I shove you down the stairs. As you're falling down the stairs, you knock over a lot of people because it's a crowded stairway and you're falling down it. Are you to blame for that? No, because that was involuntary. You didn't choose to fall down the stairs and hit those people. You're doing those things because I pushed you. My pushing you is voluntary, and I can be blamed for deciding to turn around and push you, but your falling down the stairs and bumping into other people is involuntary, and you are not to be blamed for that. You're not to be condemned for that because it's really not your fault. It was an involuntary action, right? So Aristotle draws that basic distinction between involuntary and voluntary actions. But then, being a smart guy, he realizes that there are some other kinds of actions that don't clearly fall into one or those other categories, and he calls these non-voluntary actions and mixed actions. And these actions are both more interesting and more complicated. I'm going to start with non-voluntary actions. Non-voluntary actions are actions that you choose to do, but in some kind of ignorance, not realizing the full effects of what you are going to do. So a non-voluntary action would be something where, say I am opening a door, and when I open doors, I just slam them open, right? I don't open them gently. I just throw the door open. And so I choose to just throw the door open because that's how I like to enter rooms. I like to let everyone know that I'm coming. But when I'm choosing to do that, and I'm voluntarily choosing to throw the door open, I am unaware that somebody's standing behind the door, and I bang the door right in their face. See, this action is kind of weird because on the one hand, I am freely choosing to bang the door open, but I am not choosing to hit that person in the face with it. I didn't know that they were there. So I was freely choosing something, but in ignorance of all the particulars and all of the details that if I had access to that knowledge, I might have chosen differently. Now, Aristotle says that when it comes to praise or blame for these actions, there are two things that we have to consider. First, could I or should have I known? In other words, is it my fault that I didn't have the knowledge in question? Right? If I could have had the knowledge in question, but I didn't have it because I was careless, or say because I was drunk, or because I'm just, careless, drunk, whatever, not paying attention, then it's my fault that I acted in ignorance, and so I can be blamed for that. On the other hand, if a reasonable person would say, there's no way you could have known, then we would say that you're not to be blamed for that non-voluntary action because there's no way you could have had the knowledge that you might wish that you had. So, trying to think of an example of that. Right? If there's just, maybe there's a, if there was a ninja all dressed in black, sneaking across a dark road at night, doing their best not to be seen because they're ninjas, and you run them over, we might not blame you for that because, assuming the ninja is good at their job, there's no way you could have known that they were in the road, right? So we might say that that was a non-voluntary action and you ran over the ninja, but there's no way you could have known the ninja was there because it's a ninja. Okay, but Aristotle says after that point, there's another point we have to look at, which is, do you feel bad about it? Because if I run over the ninja and I don't feel bad about it, I can be blamed for that. Aristotle thinks that when people do non-voluntary actions that have negative consequences, if they don't feel bad about it, we would blame them for that. Because we would say, hey, yes, there's no way you could have known, but you should still feel bad that you ran over this, ninja trying to sneak across the road. Or there's no way you could have known that this person was standing behind the door, but you should feel bad if you bang the door into somebody's face. And then finally we come to what I think is the most interesting kind of action that Aristotle talks about,